Hey guys, Andrew McFarlane here from StartAJuiceBar.com. Hope you guys are happy and healthy. Excited to launch your businesses or grow your existing businesses. Today we are talking about the pros and cons of opening an online only juice business, a juice truck, or a storefront. We're going to go do a side-by-side comparison because if you're in a situation where maybe you're in one of these situations or you're thinking about starting and you're not sure exactly how to start, then this is the video you've been waiting for. We're going to do a deep dive. It's going to be great. But before we do that, if you guys are new to the channel, you don't know who I am or what we do, over the last decade, 12 years at this point, to be more accurate, myself and my company has had the pleasure of running our own juice concepts as well as helping hundreds of people just like you all over the world launch and scale successful juice concepts, smoothie concepts, acai bowl businesses, juice trucks, online businesses, all the above. All the information on this channel is coming from this wealth of experience. Early invitation, press the like button. If you press it, I promise you will like the video more. Comment if you have any questions, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That way you get alerted when we release new content. All right, now let's dive in. So you are in the early stages, probably, or you've already delved into one of these concepts that I'm going to talk about, and you're going to want to find out, did I make the right decision, and is it time for me to pivot or graduate into the next evolution of my business? Okay, this is a question a lot of people have when they're getting started. And I'm going to break it all down. We're going to first start by talking about the pros and cons of an online juice business. Okay, we're going to start with, as they say in life, you want the good news, you want the bad news. Let's start with the bad news. Okay, what are some of the cons of starting an online only juice business? The first one is that you are, in essence, a ghost. As they say, you're oftentimes making your product from a ghost kitchen or a cloud kitchen or a shared commercial kitchen space. Well, guess what? Because you don't have a storefront, you don't have a physical presence, you don't have a truck, nobody knows that you exist unless you're very good at marketing. So that is one of the biggest challenges that people who are starting online face. They can do all the other stuff, get everything together, start their business, they got their product, their ingredients, everything, and then now you got to get customers. So then what do? You usually end up advertising through platforms like Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all these platforms, online ordering platforms that customers order from. But then you run into the next problem. Even if you are getting sales, these companies take very, very, very hefty commissions. When you are in the food service business, in and of itself, you're already not in a high margin business. So add on top of that, a platform that's going to take 30 to 35%, give or take, that's going to really eat into your margins. And I've talked to a lot of people who are doing pretty good sales online, upwards 100,000 a year. And guess what? They've got nothing to show for it because all that profit margin went to these third-party companies. Okay, what's the other downside of starting this kind of business? This one's a little bit more nuanced, so I want you to really pay attention, okay? One of the most important things when you're running any business is your capacity to evolve, right? When you have an online-only business and you don't have a direct connection to your customer, guess what happens? I'll just paint the picture. Let's walk through a scenario. Susanna orders a juice from you. You don't meet Susanna. You get an order through the application. You make the product. The person comes, Uber Eats driver, delivery guy picks it up, brings it over to Joanna's house. Joanna didn't hate the product, but she didn't love it. And she just decides, you know what, I'm not going to order for this company again. And it might not be because you guys did something wrong. It might be because Joanna thought she ordered a sweet green juice and it wasn't that sweet. Or she thought she ordered some kind of juice. She just didn't really get what she wanted. And now she's not going to order from you again because you weren't in direct connection with the customer in order to make sure that they had a great experience. If you had a storefront or a juice truck, for example, you could hand the juice to Joanna and say, hey, Joanna, try it out. Let me know what you think. And if Joanna's not pleased, guess what? You can resolve that issue in that moment and maintain that relationship. I've often said that mediocrity is the silent killer when it comes to business. What that means is that if people have an average experience and you don't know that they're having an average experience, you think they're having a great experience, guess what? They don't leave bad reviews. They don't leave good reviews. They just stop ordering from your business altogether. This is why mediocrity is the silent killer, because even in a better case scenario, if someone left a negative review, you could say, okay, you know what? we can improve there. I've learned something. I can do better. But when people don't give you any feedback, you don't know what you're doing wrong, that becomes a problem in your business, okay? So that's the other con. Now, what's the last one? Let's paint this other picture. Let's say you're doing really well. You started your juice business, you're getting orders. Online businesses breed competition. The reason that it was easy for you to start is going to be the same reason it's easy for everyone else to start. And so you have a situation where, depending on what your market's like, because all of you guys are going to be in different situations, where some of you guys have markets where there is already a lot of competitors, they might have storefronts, they might have juice trucks, or maybe there's none. But either way, when you're an online-only business, it's an easy way for people to get in. And in respect to you competing, let's say you are in a situation where you have other juice bar storefronts and you're having to compete with them, who is a customer more likely to order from? A company that they can walk into and they say, hey, if I have a problem with my product, I can go see Jeremy, the manager over here, or the owner, or this company that I don't even know where they're making their product. I don't even know who to talk to. If I have a problem, how do I resolve it? Who am I going to trust more as a consumer? Trust is really important when it comes to people making buying decisions. So understand that you are going to have a challenge just being in that situation. So I know this is not to be negative. This is it's about being pragmatic and giving you guys a realistic perspective of what you're walking into. Now let's talk about some of the benefits. Why is it good and potentially beneficial to start an online-only business? One, it's fast. You can get your business started pretty quickly. You could, if you really put your head down, open an online business in a few months, couple months. So that's a benefit. Two, it's cheap. This is why most people do it, because starting online relative to a juice truck or a storefront is going to require the least significant investment. But remember, sometimes that's also going to play a role in how much money you actually make. As I say, cheap is expensive. So it might be cheap to start, but it also might mean that your income is severely compromised because of your challenges that I mentioned previously when it comes to actually accelerating your income. So those are really the two major benefits, is that it's fast to start and it's usually very inexpensive to start. And connected to all those things, it is what you could see as a benefit if this is important to you. It is a way for you to get your feet wet, as they say, when it comes to diving into the business. And you can do something like this without potentially running this business full time. You could say, oh, look, I'm doing cleanse programs on the weekends, Friday, if I have a full-time job. So it does offer sometimes a bit more flexibility than if you have a juice truck or a storefront, which can, not always, but can invite and require more of a commitment. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's talk about the juice truck business model, pros and cons. Okay, so what's the first con when it comes to starting a juice truck? The first one is that sometimes, depending on where you're located, finding parking can be difficult. Right? Finding a good location for a truck can be a little bit harder than finding a good storefront. That's one. Two, you're going to be much more impacted by weather. When people are having to sit outside, stand outside for outside experience, you're going to be much more impacted by weather. So if you have really harsh winters or it rains a lot or whatever it is, unless you have some sort of indoor space where people can order and sit, which some people do, they might have overhangs where you can kind of stay like a little bit away from the elements. But for customers, this is going to be a bigger issue. Sometimes it doesn't facilitate meeting. That's another con, right? Whereas a storefront can facilitate meeting. That's the same thing too. It goes with the online business that I didn't mention earlier, but these two businesses can be meeting points when it comes to a truck, but depending on your situation, it may not be. Some trucks have dining areas where you can sit in front of them. Some don't. And if you don't, and you can't really support people in meeting, if someone's making a decision on what they want, and they say, hey, I can go to juice bar A, which I can sit down inside of, or I can go to smoothie truck or juice truck B, where I can't sit inside, where are they going to go? It's clear. So you've lost that sale. What are the other downsides? The sheer liability of driving a huge truck around town. When you have a truck, there's a lot of setup and breakdown, meaning that you gotta, just make sure everything's strapped in. You don't want your juicer to fall over. You don't want your produce to fall over. I've had situations where doors, refrigerator doors are loose. I hit a, speed bump or something else, and the doors fly open. Glass bottles of juice fly across the juice trucks, break, glass everywhere, juice everywhere, and that happens because you're driving a restaurant, in essence, on wheels around town. Now, if you're in a city or state, because you have to check in with your state laws that allows you to park in one space permanently, like, for example, in places like Texas, you can do this. In other states around the U.S., there's different sort of codes and laws around what you can and cannot do with the truck. So if you're in a place where you can just keep your truck in one spot, much better business model than having to every night go to a commissary kitchen, pack up, break down, clean up. It takes more time just in driving overall, and also your expenditure for fuel is going to be much more significant. So that's another caveat. What's the last downside that I see when it comes to a juice truck or smoothie truck or food truck, healthy food truck? It's you don't have the same threshold for income and sales. What do I mean by that? From my experience, when we started with our juice truck, I would make about $30,000 a month, and that would cap us out. Because if I was doing about $800 to $1,000 a day, we would run out of ingredients. We would run out of produce. We couldn't really make more product than that. That was sort of our upper limit of how much money we could make. Whereas when I moved into a storefront, our sales doubled, tripled. It was much more accessible. We were making a lot more money because we had more storage space. We could have more employees. Customers felt better about coming to us. We just made more money. So trucks generally have very low thresholds for sales. I've almost never come across any juice truck that's doing more than 30 grand in a month, which is $1,000 a day. There might be some out there, but I haven't really come across it. It's just not going to be much more. Whereas as a standard, if a storefront's doing $30,000 a month, it's a very low performing store. Whereas stores, generally make exponentially more money than these kinds of vehicles. Now let's talk about some of the benefits. Okay. Like I mentioned in the first example around online business, one of the benefits is pace, time. It's usually a lot faster when it comes to getting into a truck than it is getting into a store, for example. It's not going to be as fast as an online-only business, but it's faster when it comes from going from concept to actually starting your business. The next thing that's going to be benefit is that you're mobile. So being mobile kind of works for you and works against you. It works for you in the sense that if you're in a location where you're not making money, well, guess what? You can explore and move to another location. That can work well for you. I don't suggest having a truck model where you're moving to one location, new locations every single day, because you can't build consistent relationships with customers. But if you decide, hey, let's test out this location for a week, let's move in this other location for a week, let's move around for a little bit in the beginning in order for us to find out where we really want to kind of plant some roots, then I would say that's not a bad approach to take. So being mobile can work in your benefit in that respect. What I would say is, this kind of just come to my mind as in terms of a downside. With a lot of trucks, they can have a lot of technical issues, right? When I had my truck, generator wasn't working from time. We had a lot of electrical issues. Sometimes with plumbing, if you're not hooked up directly to a water source because you're not in a permanent location, you can have limited water for cleaning, washing your hands. It can become unsanitary if you don't really become mindful of that process because you have limited water. You're not connected to water, okay? So that's a downside that I just also wanted to mention. But going back to the benefits, so what did I mention there? Being mobile and having it be quick. Also, it's cheaper to start a truck than a storefront traditionally, okay? And then the last one is that it's novel. People like novel experiences. So oftentimes you can just become attractive to customers because you're in a truck and people are like, oh, this is so cool, it's so cute, it's so new, it's unique. You sell juice from this truck. The novelty in some ways for some businesses has worn off a little bit more as juice and food trucks have become more popular, but it always has that novelty experience. It's unique because we aren't used to traditionally buying juice through a truck experience. So if you're interested in starting a juice truck, we've actually created a product called the Juice Truck Business in a Box. There's going to be a link in the description so you can check that out. Now let's move on to the beloved storefront. I find that most people want to have storefronts, and the reason that they either do a juice truck or they do an online-only business is because they feel like a storefront isn't as accessible, which in some ways can be accurate because it is going to take more time and it's going to require a bigger investment. But a lot of the clients that we work with, they just start from a storefront from day one. So if that is something that you decide that is most compelling to you, reach out to me personally at Andrew at Starter Juice Bar so we can talk about that as well. Now let's just dive into some of the pros, some of the cons. In fashion, we'll start with the cons. This is going to take the most time, okay? You're talking about, in best case scenario, unless you find a location that's already built out, 5 months to 8 months, maybe more, but that's the spread that we see on average. So it's going to be a longer duration between the time that you have the concept to open to when you actually open your doors. The next downside is that you can't move your location, and it's very important that you find a great location, okay? Because if you don't have a great location, it's going to be much more impactful to you than if you're in a ghost kitchen, cloud kitchen, or have a truck. That's a downside. The third thing that you could say is a downside is it's going to definitely require a bit more complexity to set up. Not just thinking about time, but just the logistics around putting a storefront together, doing construction, negotiating leases with landlords. There's more steps in the process when it comes to opening a store. And the last downside, which I would say sometimes is actually not as different than when it comes to like a truck in a store. I found out in my own experience, my overhead for just maintaining my business in the truck from what I would consider rent, right? So the things that are commissary kitchen, the truck rental, parking tickets, gas, these are just like operational expenses. I was actually spending the same amount on a monthly basis for the truck as I ended up spending on the rent for my store. So sometimes it's a misconception that financially the liability is going to be less with a truck than it actually is for a store. So I want to clear that up. But in some situations, you might find that you are getting into longer term lease. There are ways to negotiate leases to reduce your liability. These are all the kinds of things that you learn along the way that might alleviate some of the, you could say, fear that you might have of actually getting into a storefront. So those are things to be discussed, but that is something to consider. Okay, so let's talk about some of the benefits of actually having a storefront. Number one, it doesn't breed as much competition because it is more of a significant investment, because it does take more time. When you have a storefront, people don't want to open up right next door to you. They're just discouraged to do that. So you end up having more domain over a certain kind of territory. Not to say that you're not going to have competition, because of course, if you're in a good market and you're thriving, there's going to be people who want to come in and they're going to want to compete. That's just the nature of the environment. But it breeds less competition. The other thing too is a store can facilitate things that a truck cannot and an online storefront cannot, but it can also do everything that a truck can do, minus being mobile, and that an online store can do. Meaning you can do online deliveries, you can do events, but you can also have people come and meet you at your location, meet customers and have them meet each other at your location. This is something you can't do as well or at all in the previous two scenarios. So a store can facilitate a different experience. What's the next benefit and pro? It's that people have more trust in your business just by the sheer nature that you have a storefront. You can ask yourself that question. What kind of companies do you have more respect and more trust for? Is it some business that you only see online? Or is it a company that you can walk into the store, have the experience, build community, connect with people, talk to a manager if you need to, modify your product if you need to, see the beautiful store design? And why is this important? Because the more customers trust you, the more money they spend with you. The more customers trust you, the more money they spend with you. So you will make more money with a store if you could, and this was my experience, just to kind of compare apples to apples. If we had 100 customers a day come to our juice truck versus 100 customers a day come to our storefront, the 100 customers that came to our storefront spent twice the amount. Same 100 people, same company, same product. Why were they spending twice the amount? What I would speculate is because the customer experience was improved, the trust was improved, we could sell more products, we could do things faster, everything was better, so they felt like they wanted to spend more there. Because it's not just did we have more customers, it's actually we doubled our average ticket sale. In food service, you have what is the number of customers, what is your price per product, and what is the average ticket sale. Average ticket sale is very important. And so we just made more money with a storefront overall. And that's probably one of the biggest benefits is you're going to impact more people. You can facilitate events. You can do so many things that the other two models cannot do. And by sheer elevation of the brand, you will make more money with the same number of people. The last thing that I'll say, and this applies, and we can say this is a pro of the previous two models, is that you can franchise the previous two models. You can't really franchise an online juice business. Right? Maybe you could sell distribution territories. It might be quite difficult because most people are going to think, well, why would I? It's so cheap to start. It's so easy to start. Why would I need to buy into that concept? If your goal in the future is to franchise your business, having a model that's a bit more physical structure, be it a juice truck, which you can franchise, or be it a storefront that you can franchise. So the opportunities for income, the opportunities for growth are much more significant. So those are the pros and cons of each models. I hope this has been helpful and insightful and you have more clarity on what you want to do. If you're in a place where potentially the thing that's stopping you from starting your storefront or any of the models that I mentioned is not having the money, don't let that stop you. Reach out to me personally at Andrew@StartAJuiceBar.com. We can talk about how we can support you in raising the money that you need for any concept for your business. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you stayed this long, I'm sure you did enjoy the video. Press the like button if you haven't yet. Questions or comments, put it in the comment box below. I'm very active in the chat. I respond to almost every single comment. So go ahead and put it below. Even if you want to just tell me you liked the video, go ahead and do that. Last few announcements. If you're not following us on Instagram, definitely you want to follow us on Instagram. We have a podcast called the Juice Bar Experts Podcast. Easy to find, Spotify, iTunes. We have exclusive giveaways on our Instagram. Stay in touch with us in every single realm. Happy to support you guys. Until next time, Andrew McFarland with StartAJuiceBar.com. See you guys soon. Hope you guys have been enjoying the video content. If you're inspired to learn even more about how to start your juice business from scratch, for you, we have a free ebook. It's called the 15 Steps to Starting Your Juice Business. And this is going to go through a high-level overview, through a step-by-step process on how you get your business off the ground. Everything from, branding, menu development, finding the right location, and more. This is going to be a clear roadmap so you know how to go from where you are all the way to opening your store. If you want to go even deeper, we've also created an online course. It's called the Juice Bar Master Blueprint. This is going to go into great depth on everything from how do you put together and think about recipe development? How do you cost out your menu and what's the math around it? What equipment do you need? How do you design your store? How do you find the right location? And so much more. I know you're going to find a lot of value out of both of these. There's links in the description below. So I hope to see you guys at the next video and enjoy.